Hello, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me for this session of Straight Chablis. My name is Maymata Aliyah. I'm a New York-based wine educator, and today the focus of my discussion is on the comparison between the 2017 and 2019 vintages in Chablis. The Chablis region is certainly no stranger to unpredictable growing conditions, but even for this northern wine region, these two very different vintages pose some rather unique sets of challenges. And to help us better understand what those challenges look like from a winemaker's point of view, I am joined today by Benoi Droin from Domaine Jean-Paul et Benoi Droin. And to give added dimension to the discussion, today we'll be tasting four wines, four from famous Premier Cru Climat in the Chablis region. Two wines will be from the Forchaume Premier Cru, and two wines will be from the Vaugros Premier Cru. I hope that you will enjoy this discussion. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's take it away. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to our guest and ask you, Benoit, to please start by just introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your domain.
So my name is Benoi Droin. I work in Chablis. I start to go vinificate after my study. I study 5 years in Beaune and 2 years in Dijon. And I start my first vintage in Chablis in '99. So it's 22 years ago. I'm working in my family domain. I have the luck to be the 14th generation of wine grower in my domain. Yes, because the domain Jean-Paul and Benoi was created. We are not sure exactly, but we are sure that it's created since 1620. So 4th century.
Wow.
Yes, of course. So that explains that we are very lucky to produce a lot of different appellations in Chablis because all my grandparents keep the good terroir and give it to the son. And today I'm very happy to work on this good terroir. So the domain now is 26 hectares.
Okay.
And we have the 4 different appellations, so Petit Chablis, Chablis, Chablis Premier Cru, and Chablis Grand Cru.
Okay.
We work on 9 Premier Cru and 5 Grand Cru. So this is a very great palette of different terroirs.
Yeah, that's a really nice spread, actually. So you really have a very good sense of the region at large. You're not just in one area.
Forchaume, at first, it's a very great area of Premier Cru. And the specificity of Forchaume, it's that you have it in a long way, because it starts. If I can show you on the map.
Oh, great!
Do you have to see it?
Yes.
Yes.
This is perfect. So, you know what? I have my map too.
The same. Perfect.
Yes. So Forchaume is up here.
Yes, and Forchaume starts in the north near Maligny, and going a long way to Fontenay, and there's a little place on the other side near Chablis, which called Vaugros, but it's a Forchaume too. So the particularity of Forchaume, it's a very great area with a lot of different places, which can take the name of the little place or the general place. We say Port Drapeau in Chablis, the name of Forchaume. So Forchaume is not always easy to describe, because it depends on the place where you are, because you can have different style. You can have a very classic style with minerality, with oysters aromas, and from other place which is more with a deeper soil, with more richness and more concentration. So it's interesting when we know what is the producer, is to know where is it in the Forchaume. It is not a Premier Cru in a valley; it's a Premier Cru in a coteau. So you are it's more like the style of wine in Côte d'Or, which they don't have valley; they have just coteau. And all the other Premier Cru in Chablis, a great part of Premier Cru in Chablis are in a valley, with the good exposition in Premier Cru and the other side in Chablis. but for Fauchon, it's only a coteau. All the premier cru in the right bank have an exposition south and southwest, on west.
So very similar to the exposition of the Grand Cru.
Yes, except that in Grand Cru, there are some place with valley for Vaudésir and Valmure. But if you take Bougros or if you take Les Clos, it's the same exposition.
Okay, great. Okay, that's great. Yeah, and you mentioned you mentioned the word the pot drapeau for, and I think the way we refer to it here as the flagship. So
Yes.
you know, you have like Fauchon, and then you have some of the other maybe lesser recognized premier cru appellation, and they can use their own or they can use the term Fauchon. So so it is a rather large premier cru, but
yes,
you choose to use the term Fauchon or one of the others.
Vosgros, the first particularity, it's not a right bank, it's a left bank. When you take the map, you can see that you have the right bank and the left bank. Mm-hmm. The left bank, at the opposition of the right bank, the exposition is more on the east. So it's more south and east and southeast. Mm. But the particularity of Vosgros, which is in the south of the appellation of Chablis, it's a little plot, you can see, between the river, the valley of Serein, the river of Chablis, mm-hmm. and all the valley, which has no river now, but it was an old river, and you have a little plot in the middle, and the exposition of Vosgros is it's a term valley, so you don't have a particular exposition. You have a different exposition. It could start at the north, the south, the east, and the west, because it's like a theater. Okay. So it's depend of the exposition. Where are the parcel? But okay. What is interesting to say that this is not a coteau like Fauchon, it is a valley. So yes, the exposition is important, but what is very important in Chablis, it's the fact this is a valley. And when you have a valley, you have the valley is close to the north, so you don't have too much wind in this valley. So you have a real microclimate, which is more important than the exposition, which gives the climate, if you understand. Okay. So yes, of course, if you are in the south, you have more sun, more high temperature. But when you are in a valley, you have a microclimate which gives the same temperature in the different side. It's so interesting because we talk about those premier cru, but then also within that premier cru, you have whether you're at a slightly different elevation or a slightly different aspect or slightly different exposure, and even there's even more nuance. So it's always so complicated, but so wonderfully complicated. Okay, so now that we have a sense of those two different premier cru, let's talk a little bit about the vintages. So as I mentioned, our specific discussion today is on 2017 and 2019, right? But let's put them a little bit in context of maybe the last 20 years. So let's start from 2015 going up to 2020. If I have to talk about the last 5-6 vintage, what is important to say and to explain that we generally have more and more hot climates and more hot vintage, and it starts with 2015 was a particular hot vintage with a summer with a high temperature. 35 and sometimes more, and the particularity of this temperature is to burn a little the acidity of malic and dartric, and it's changed automatically the style of the wine we produce now than 20 years ago. 16 was particular because we saw again the frost, and we were thinking that it was finished for us, but unfortunately in 16, yes, we have a lot of problem with climate, and it results to a very low yield. Yeah. But after that, the climate was more cool after, so the style of the wine in 16 was more classic. Then arrived say 17 again the frost, different frost, not the same place than in 16, but essentially in the north of Chablis, on the town of Maligny, of Lignorel, Villy, La Chapelle. It's all the appellation in the north of Chablis. The north winds come in April and burn first all the buds, and we lose a lot of yield because of the frost. After that, the climate was, of course, better. A little rainy in July, but dry in August, and finally with not excess temperature and not too cold, not too hot, and it was perfect for the vine. So the only problem was the yield, because for the rest it was super. Then after 18, so 18 was the exception in the last 6 years, because for one time we don't have too much frost in April, just some night, but it was not a problem. And the flowering was very good. It just very rainy was in May and June, so we have a lot of reserve in the soil, and we were very surprised to see at the harvest that the yield was very good and good quality and good quantity. So it was the exception for us.
I've heard a lot of people say that 2018 was like the vintage.
Yes, of course. Yes,
you get to breathe now.
And after arrive, of course, because with 18 was good, why 19 would be good? No, the first problem was another time in April, because the vine was in advance. So when the frost arrived, we don't have a lot of damage of frost. How can I say directly? But the temperature was very low all April and May. But the result is that the flowering was very bad after, because too much problem for the vines to grow. And when you have a bud, normally on the buds, when you grow, you have 2, sometimes 3 grapes.
Yeah.
And in 19, I remember it was 1 and sometimes 0. Oh, wow. So it cut the yield by the half for a lot of place. So, and the second thing in 19, after the bad flowering, so with a small quantity, that we have a very second time a very dry summer in July and in August, like in 18. But the difference is that the winter was not very rainy, so there's no reserve, and the vine take all the reserve in 18. So when the very dry summer arrived, the grapes was very small and don't grow just before the harvest. And I remember the harvest of 19, it was very small, a lot of little grapes. So perfect for quality, of course, very good concentration, because the particularity is the grapes don't grow. So the sugar was concentrated, and the acidity, because the acidity was not delayed by water. So when we harvest, the acidity was very good, but with high level of alcohol. We have a lot of different wine, different terroir with more than 13, sometimes 14 degrees. We have more freshness, more acidity in 19. Even if we have high alcohol, the 19 are more classic, more Chablis than 18.
All right, and then 20?
20, same problem, the frost in April, but not too much. So we don't lose a lot of potential in April at the start. But after the campaign was classic. We have a good temperature in August with cold night. Okay. So it's very good for the vine, because the vine like cold temperature in the morning and hot temperature in the day for the maturity. And this maturity was very, very, very beautiful in 2020. And it's for me a very good vintage, and it's for me similar to 17, with perhaps less concentration of acidity, but with more concentration of aromas.
I mean, you talk about all these challenges, but then I've also been doing a lot of education with Chablis for the last few years, and I taste the wines, and they're still beautiful wines. And so, in despite of all of this craziness and all of the challenges that get thrown at you, you're all still making beautiful wine. I would say even better than it's been in a long. I mean, I think the quality of the wines in Chablis has just gone up and up, in my opinion. So, and then putting it in this challenge, in the framework of the challenges that you face, it's even more exceptional. So bravo to you. Okay, shall we taste some wine? Shall we start with yours? How do you like it? Would you like to start with the 17 or the 19, Benoi? I like to take my lead from you.
For me, perhaps first 19 to an old wine after. So,
okay.
So if it's okay for you.
Okay, so I have.
And you prefer start with we taste the 219?
Sure.
Compare?
Yeah, that's great.
And after the 217?
Perfect. So I'm starting with your wine. So the Chablis Premier Cru Vaugros, and it's the 2019. And then my second wine is the Chablis Premier Cru Forcham from Domaine des Malandes. Do you know Malandes? Do you know the domain?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Okay, great. So then you can.
Very good producer. And
excellent. Okay, so.
And this is interesting because we will have two different vinification. With normally I have a vinification in barrels, but for this one, Vaugros, it's only tank. So it's interesting to talk about the difference in the style of the wine.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. So we're starting with yours. So again, this is from the Vaugros, and you were talking a little bit about this actually when you were talking about the different Premier Cru, that a lot of them are on the the côte. So one of the things I usually say, if a lot of the names of the climat, if it's Vaud this or Vaud that, it's a valley, right? Or it's the Mont du Milieu, or so it gives you a sense, or the côte. So a lot of the climat are actually giving you an idea of the location of the of the actual vineyard site, or the actual Premier Cru. So let's talk about your wine. So you said this is 2019, 100% stainless steel fermentation. Okay, and then can we talk a little bit just about your wine making? Like, do you are you using are you inoculating? Are you using indigenous? What's your yeast approach?
So it's more natural as possible, and the philosophy in general of my winemaking is to accentuate the style of each wine. So when a wine is very terroir is mineral, I try to put more mineral, and when it's more rich and less mineral, I try to put it less mineral to separate at the maximum the style of the wine, and not to group in the middle, because if I do the opposite, wine is mineral, less mineral, and wine rich, more mineral, you will have similarity, you understand? And what is important for me is to accentuate the style of each wine.
So, okay. And for you, what are you trying to get in terms of, what are you getting in terms of aromatics and kind of structure? What's your classic impression of what you want in your Vaugros?
It's depend of the vintage, because in the cold vintage or in the hot vintage, you can have some difference. But generally, in Vaugros, I find some aromas of petrol aromas, like on Riesling, if you know. Because it's not what is generally when you have that, it's on a granite soil. But in Vaugros, you don't have granite; it's only Marne Méridien. But perhaps because it's more cold, because it's a cold valley, Vaugros, you have this aromas of freshness, of I say petrol aromas, oysters. It's difficult to explain that because we don't eat the oysters.
No,
but we have the sensation around the oysters, and it's remember that.
Yeah, it's interesting because
aromas.
Yeah, I opened this wine last night and I tasted it, and then I kind of going back to it today, and it's changed. It's changed quite a little bit. because yesterday it was coming across as almost more ripe, and now it's kind of taken a step back. And I really quite, I'm surprised,
totally,
and I
I
like
totally
that. I
agree.
like that surprise actually.
Yes, because when it's just open, you have a lot of aromas explode, and
Yeah,
sometimes you don't find at first the subtlety of the terroir. You have more
exactly.
concentration of all, but after with oxygen, with aeration, the wine are changed. And
Yeah,
I prefer drinking the wine after 2 or 3 days open. And a lot of people are afraid and say, "Oh, I have opened a bottle. I have to finish it this evening." No, I always say, just put the cork, put it in the fresh place, and you can wait 3, 5, 7 years,
yeah,
7 days. No problem. No
yeah.
problem. The wine will be better.
No, I'm actually really glad that I did that, because it's really striking to me, because I was tasting. I had a friend over who's also in the business, and I said, "Oh, let's taste these wines together."
Yeah.
Um, and we were both like, it smelled almost. I don't use this word lightly for Chablis, but almost tropical. I mean, it really smelled very kind of very ripe and quite, and it's really changed overnight. So I'm very happy to see that. And now I'm
Now you have
excited to see
the
how it'll
You are
change.
on the sea aromas, I think. You
Yeah,
have
a
the
lot.
sea aromas. We say salin, salin,
Yeah,
iodé.
a lot of salinity is coming
Yeah,
through. It's
salinity.
and it's like really taken a very different, and the concentration is really beautiful, and it's more in balance right now.
Yes,
So
the particularity of 19 that you have very good acidity. It's fresh, but with a high concentration because of the low yield.
mm-mm-mm, beautiful. So um yeah, there's a ripeness, but then there's this beautiful acidity that's just so juicy, and it's really, I mean, it's really mouth-watering. And then I'm getting almost like the salinity, like a lime and salt, and yeah, really nice. All right, let's compare it to
Yes.
the Melon de Faucham. So again, we're doing the 2019, and so you said you're familiar with that domain, which is terrific. So in terms of their am I smelling a little bit of wood here, a little bit of oak?
Yes, I'm so on the technical fee, so, sheet
Fiche
that
technique.
yeah, fish technique that there's for this vintage, because it's not the same thing for the 17, but for this vintage there's 40% in barrels and in 2 years old. So it's
Okay.
not new oak. It's not new oak, but 2 years old. It's enough to put some aromas in the wine. So we find it. If you compare just before with the 100% of tank, it's more evident. If you
Yeah.
don't compare, sometimes it's not easy to find. But when you have a wine without oak and after a wine with oak, you can
Yeah.
find the difference.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting because it's two different style, two interesting style. Now we are on a more rich style
Right.
in the place of Fauchaume, which is, I think, a more deeper soul. So it gives to the wine more complexity, more richness, and that's the reason. The reason I think that they put some oak, because for the same reason I will put some oak in Fauchaume, because I think it's a good blend for this terroir.
What is happening for me in this wine is that Forcham is a more generous climat, and it's more
Yes,
open to the sun, and it's usually a little bit more
yes,
accessible when it's younger and it's riper. And what they've done with this wine is they've taken that and enhanced it. And there is a little bit of oak on there, and I'm usually someone who's not necessarily a big fan of oak, but it's not overwhelming the wine here. It's really supporting the wine and enhancing the wine. So it's
yes.
taken that quality of Farcham and just making it even more different than the Verrou. So, and I actually think I quite like it. It's definitely one that I would like to try again in a few years, because I think that that oak to me, which I noticed on the nose, it's probably the first thing that I noticed, will take a step back and integrate with the wine, and it's just going to be a much more complex impression,
Okay.
and maybe in a few years. But really, really nice. I love how different they are. That the
Yes. It's
melon that
like
you're
I
trying.
always say, it's like children. people say what you prefer in the style. They say there are two side children. We like the two in the different style.
Yeah. And also very different, I mean, different food, right? You would have them with different food and their different expression. And that's, again, the whole beauty of it, right? I mean, the idea is not to make one singular wine, it's to make these very plural wines that are expressions of their site. Shall we compare those to the 17? Now I'm curious.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
It will be very interesting.
And we'll do the same thing. We'll start with your wine. So this is, again, we're doing the same Premier Cru, right? And this is the 2017. And then the bottle that I have, I think it might have been a label change from 20 to 19, but this is the Vieille Vigne.
Yes, it's a different level, yes.
Yeah, so it's the Vieille Vigne Melande and also Forcham 2017. That's wine number 3 and 4 or 1 and 2 of round 2. Okay, so let's see. So we said 17 was, you talked a little bit about that. So maybe we're talking about it more in generalities. Maybe speak a little bit more about how it was for you, 17, and how you're seeing that in your wine.
17 is, for me, very, very classic Chablis with a good acidity because it was a fresh summer. So we have for people who like seashell, who want oysters aromas, salty aromas. Of course, we have it in 19, but 19 with concentration, like you say, it was more mature. And now when you arrive, from it you have lime, you have citrus aromas. It's very, very fresh and very young. I don't taste at first, but in the nose you know that you are in Chablis. Even it's difficult sometimes in some vintage to say yes, I think it's Chablis, but when you taste 17, you say a blind test, you are in Chablis.
It's exactly what I was. I'm like, I put the wine to my nose, and it just put a big smile on my face because I'm like, I'm home, I'm in Chablis, no question asked. This is classic expression of what I want in Chablis. And I happen to love that. I find there's such a beautiful tension in the acidity of that wine. I mean, to me, it's just like that's the vertical that's holding the whole wine together, is this acidity. And I love it. But it's not that there's not other things around it, but it's definitely more on the citrus, greener lime. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's like, you want Chablis? There it is.
Yeah, of course. And yes, a lot of people say what is minority because it doesn't exist. But when you put the nose, you imagine the rock, you imagine the stone, the citrus, the lime. And it's very, very, very classic. But what is interesting is when I smell at first the wine, I say, wow, it's still fresh, and I think the mouth will be a little too fresh for the moment because I don't like to drink my wines before the 1st year, and we are now at 4 years. So it's generally a period which the wine is a little closed and not too much mature to be open. But what my surprise is to see that the mouth is very warm and not very strict, not very hostile. And I say no. Of course, we have to wait, but if we want to drink, we can.
So for you, this wine, so this is the 2017. We already have, we said 4 years in. So 7-8 years, is that where you would think that wine would be?
The 2 windows, it's just before the 3 first year or after the 7 to 20 years. And in the middle, it's a bad moment for me because too old to be fresh and too young to be mature. If you understand what I say.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, we sort of talk about the wines going through a closed phase. To me, I don't perceive that wine as being closed quite yet, but I see you're sort of saying it's starting to go into that, taking a nap.
I'm surprised that the wine is not too close because it's not. We are in the bad moment for me because after 3 years the fruit is finished and now the maturity starts, but it's not a baby, it's under a baby, of course. And 17 is a good vintage to keep. We can take an appointment, see you in 15 years, and we will see that that Bosco will be still fresh.
All right, we'll see. I'm coming over for dinner. Let's compare it to the Malone, their 2017. Let's see how they did. So this is a Vieille Vigne. I think it's a.
I think you can find at first the difference, the big difference between the 19 and now. And I think for the wine, we are in the windows that the freshness, the fruit go back, go away, and we don't have the maturity at first. And you are more in the lactic aromas. You know that lactic milk you have, and it's generally classic period of Chablis wine when it's starting to be mature, but not but it's not arrived. So you have this aromas of butter, of milk, and it's not the how can I say the toasted aromas which will arrive, but I think it needs minimum 5 years more.
Yeah. Yeah, I usually think of that as like a lemon cream pie. It's usually my note for that. You can see the difference in the structure and the tension between the fruit and the acid between the 19 and the 17. So, you know, even if it's kind of not fully showing its full potential right now, I get a difference in structure between those
17
two.
has a big potential. We have in the mouth, it's very strong, very rich. Even if 19 was very rich, but 17 is more rich because it's more complete with more acidity, with more oil, but just needs more time to be decompact.
Yeah,
very compact now. It needs time.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I think it's a really nice comparison between the two. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just almost like the 2019. You're getting more ripeness. The acidity is there. It's concentrated, but the tension between the ripeness and the acidity is very different between the two vintages for me.
And the wine is younger, 2 years more. So it's more on the fruit today. So it's more accessible.
For me, the 17 is probably where my where my heart is at, in more sort of a more classic expression.
Yes, very no. 17 is wonderful.
So nice. Well, I'm so glad that I got a chance to taste these wines with you. So we want to start to wrap up because I know you have a busy day or busy afternoon, or maybe some fun plans for Friday night. But let's just in terms of looking at this year, and I know, you know, I'm on Instagram and a lot of people who are on Instagram saw a lot of the, you know, come April, it looked like we were seeing similar pictures from Austria and Germany and Chablis with the smudge spots and the frost again. And, you know, it's just so without, you know, dwelling too much. I know did you start to harvest yet this year?
No, we will start in 2 or 3 weeks.
So aside from, you know, it was a difficult spring. How has it been since that difficult spring that we all heard about with the, you know, with all the frost everywhere? How has it been for you during the summer?
The weather was very difficult in April, was very difficult for the growth season. But now we are lucky to have not too high temperature, which is for me the best thing for Chablis, because we keep a lot of acidity, of acid malic and acid tartric. And we know that excessive temperature after 30 degrees, we lose a lot of acidity. And if we want to do 14 or 17, we need this temperature. So perhaps with this temperature and this cool temperature in the night and normal temperature in the day, we could do a 17, but in small quantity.
Okay. Well, I hope so.
This is the big problem. But I remember what I say for 17. A lot of people say, "What do you think of 17?" I say it's a perfect vintage except for the yield. Perhaps I will say the same thing for 21.
Yeah.
I hope.
Wow. Well, this has been really wonderful, Benoit. Thank you so much for all your insight, your time, your beautiful wines. And as I said, I know this is a busy time for you, so I really appreciate you joining me for this conversation. And cheers to you. Cheers to Chablis. Cheers to 2021 being a really good small vintage. And I wish you all the best. Yeah, right? I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.